Rachel stood trembling as Dakota placed his hand on her shoulder before the gathered Apache community. She'd been found wandering the desert 3 days ago, delirious from thirst, a white woman with nowhere to go. When she'd recovered enough to speak, she'd explained she was fleeing an arranged marriage in Boston, had gotten separated from a wagon train, and had nothing left. Dakota had done what tradition allowed, claimed her as his wife, offering protection through marriage. Now his people watched suspiciously, wondering why their war chief had bound himself to a white woman. "She is under my protection," Dakota announced in Apache, then repeated in English for Rachel's benefit. "Any who wish to challenge this claim may speak now." No one spoke, but Rachel saw the resentment in many eyes. She was an outsider, a burden, another mouth to feed in a community already struggling. They'd been pushed onto marginal land, their resources dwindling, their way of life under constant threat. What happened next would transform her from unwanted refugee to the person who would save them all, proving that value lies in what you offer, not where you come from. But before we continue with this powerful story, if you believe in unexpected heroes and found purpose, hit that like button and subscribe because we share inspiring stories every single day. The first weeks were difficult. Rachel tried to help but didn't know their ways. She couldn't speak the language, couldn't prepare food properly, couldn't do the work that would prove her worth. Children giggled at her mistakes. Women ignored her. Only Dakota showed patience, teaching her words, showing her techniques, defending her presence when others questioned it. One evening, Rachel overheard Dakota arguing with his counsel. She understood enough Apache now to grasp the crisis. The U.S. government was threatening to relocate the tribe again, claiming their current land was needed for railroad expansion. The tribe had no legal representation, no way to fight the bureaucratic machinery designed to erase them. Rachel's heart began racing. Before fleeing Boston, she'd worked as a legal clerk in her uncle's law office, copying documents and learning the language of contracts and claims. She understood how the legal system worked, how to file proper paperwork, which arguments held weight. Now you might wonder how someone goes from refugee to savior, how skills from one life become crucial in another. Share your thoughts in the comments about using your gifts to help others, because this story shows how purpose often finds us in unexpected places. "Dakota," Rachel said, interrupting the council meeting against all protocol. The men turned to her in surprise and irritation. "I can help. I know how to fight them legally." "This is not your concern, white woman," an elder said dismissively. "Go back to the women's area. It is my concern if I'm part of this tribe, and I have skills you need." Rachel stood her ground despite her fear. "I worked in a law office for 8 years. I know how to draft legal documents, how to file claims, how to use their own system against them. Let me try to help." Dakota studied her, seeing determination where there'd been uncertainty before. "Explain what you mean." Rachel spent the next hour detailing what she knew. The tribe's land was granted through a treaty that specified certain conditions. If they could prove the government was violating its own treaty terms, if they could file the right paperwork with the right courts, they might stop the relocation. It was a slim chance, but it was something. The council was skeptical, but desperation made them willing to try. Rachel worked for weeks, drafting documents by firelight, using precious paper Dakota bought in town, writing legal arguments in the formal language she'd learned in her uncle's office. She filed claims with the territorial court, the Federal Indian Affairs Office, and finally with a sympathetic judge Dakota helped her locate. While they waited for responses, Rachel continued learning Apache ways. But now women began teaching her willingly, seeing her dedication to helping the tribe. Children stopped giggling and started following her around, curious about this white woman who was fighting for them. Elders shared stories, helping her understand the historical context of their struggle. 3 months after filing the documents, a federal marshal arrived with news. The court had granted a temporary injunction halting the relocation. Rachel's legal arguments had exposed violations of treaty terms that the government couldn't easily dismiss. They'd bought time for a full hearing. That night, the tribe gathered to honor Rachel. Women brought her gifts, elders thanked her formally, children sang songs. Dakota stood beside her, his hand on her shoulder once again, but this time the gesture felt different. Not claiming ownership, but expressing partnership. "You came to us helpless," the eldest council member said in Apache. which Dakota translated quietly for Rachel. We thought you were a burden Dakota had foolishly taken on. But you have proven that value is not in where someone comes from, but in what they offer. You used knowledge from the white world to protect the Apache world. You have become one of us not through blood, but through choice and action. The hearing took place 4 months later. Rachel presented their case, her legal training allowing her to speak the language of courts, while her adopted tribe's stories gave her arguments emotional weight. The judge, impressed by the thoroughness of her documentation and the clear treaty violations she'd exposed, ruled in the tribe's favor. The land was theirs, protected now by legal precedent that would be harder for future officials to ignore. When they returned home, Dakota pulled Rachel aside. When I claimed you, it was to save your life. But Rachel, you saved all of us. You've given my people something they've rarely had: legal protection, documented rights, a voice in their own system. Rachel took his hand. This man who'd given her sanctuary when she had nothing. You saved me first. You gave me purpose when I felt purposeless. You showed me I had value when I thought I was just running away from one bad situation into another. Years later, Rachel became known as a fierce advocate for tribal rights across multiple territories. She used her unique position, fluent in both Apache and legal language, white by birth, but Apache by choice, to help other tribes navigate the complex legal systems designed to dispossess them. She trained young tribal members in legal documentation, helped them file their own claims, taught them to use the oppressor's tools for their own protection. When asked how she'd found her calling, Rachel always told the same story. She'd been claimed by an Apache warrior when she was lost and helpless. He'd given her shelter, and in return, she'd found a way to give his people something they desperately needed. Sometimes the people we think we're saving end up saving us. And sometimes being an outsider means seeing solutions that insiders might miss. If this story touched you, if it reminded you that everyone has valuable skills and sometimes our purpose finds us in unexpected places, please share it today. Maybe someone needs to know their past experience has future value. Or maybe someone needs courage to offer their unique gifts. Subscribe for more stories about unexpected heroes and found purpose. Thank you for being here. See you in the next story.